All right, we're live. What's happening, guys? Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. Hope you guys are having a great day. It's a Sunday here in India, Sunday evening. So wherever you guys are gonna watch this from, I hope you have a great Sunday. I have with me Abdullah Sameer. So hey Abdullah, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? It's a Sunday morning here.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, man. You got up early in the morning for me, so really
No, it's
appreciate
okay.
it. So, Abdullah, before we get into the discussion, I want you to tell a bit about yourself to everybody who's going to be watching this. So, let's start from there and then we can get into the nitty gritty of being an ex Muslim.
So, I was born in Kenya, but my parents were born in Kenya. My grandparents were born in Kenya, but my family is actually Indian. So we came from Jamnagar. So quite a few generations ago. So
Gujarat.
yeah. So at least on my mom's side, my dad I never really looked into because, like I said, we were in Kenya for a long time, and then my parents moved to Canada. So I'm now Canadian, and I grew up in a family that my dad is Ismaili and my mom was Sunni, but not practicing Sunni. And so I grew up as an Ismaili, which is, maybe there's 10 million Ismailis in the world. It's a small community. You have them in India, Pakistan, a lot of Desi countries. You'd find them a little bit in Afghanistan, and Canada, obviously, but you don't tend to find them in Arabic countries. So I was born in this community as an Ismaili. I believed in Aga Khan as a spiritual leader. And when I was in high school, around the age of probably 18 or so, I had a transformation where I read the Quran. I had some Sunni friends that were inviting me for namaz. And after going through this phase for a few months, maybe actually a few years, I decided to become Sunni Muslim. So I converted to Sunni Islam. But I didn't just convert to Sunni Islam. I went all the way. So I started praying 5 times a day. I started fasting, and thank you. I basically I deep dived into Islam. I became really religious. I was doing dawah. Like I was involved in like booths and conferences. I set up a website called lightuponlight.com, which at the time, this was before YouTube. So like, because I'm in IT, so I'm like, hey, how can I help Islam? How can I help people to find Allah? Because, I want everybody to go to heaven, right? I want everybody to be on Allah's good side. We don't want to be on his bad side because his bad side is really bad. So let's help these people to be on Allah's good side, right? It's almost like you're trying to protect people from an evil king or an evil monster, right? Although you don't call Allah an evil monster as a Muslim, but now I can say that that's what it is, right? And so you're trying to help people. So you're like, let's show them the truth so that they don't end up going to hell, basically, right? So what I did is I set up this website, lightuponlight.com, which was a very big website at the time. I think 15 million downloads. Now this is before YouTube. Okay, so just to set up the infrastructure, I had people tell me you can't do this. Running a video website is very expensive. And how are you going to afford it? Like, you can't just, like, I don't have a data center in my backyard, right? So I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. And sometimes when people tell you no, you want to do it even more. So I found a way. I set up a web hosting business, and then I was able to like fund this website. And so that's how I paid for it. So it was useful in its time, but as YouTube came out, I kind of stopped maintaining it because I'm like, well, there's no need anymore because everyone's uploading the videos directly to YouTube. And then I made another big website, which was called versebyversequran.com, which was basically a website made to help other Muslims who wanted to create Quran websites. It was like a B2B website for other developers, right?
That's
So you
interesting.
could, yeah, so you could take the Quran recitation, like each ayah, like Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and then you could connect that to like the text, and you could make a website. So major websites all over the world, like Quran.com, Tanzil.com, Quran Reciter, all of them started using my Quran files because I had all different recitations. And basically this was another like kind of big project I had to do, where I had to hire someone in Egypt to like, there's a lot of manual labor involved in doing this, because it takes, each Quran recitation is about 24 hours minimum, and somebody has
Wow.
to go through like step by step and clip it, cut it. So it's a very, very time consuming process. But by the end of it, I had more than, I think, 15 different recitations done, or maybe 20. And I went to a kind of debate where I'm like, should I shut this down or should I leave it up? And the guy that did the work, who I paid for it, but he was doing it at like a reduced rate, he said, please just leave the website up because I put so much effort into this and I would hate to see this go. And he's like, you don't believe anyway, so why do it should be, why does it bother you? So I said, okay, you know what? It's like I see it as a resource of sorts. It's people can listen to the Quran if they want to. It's fine. So I gave it away. I gave it to the people that run Quran.com. And for lightuponlight.com, I decided to keep it, and I kept it up with a notice so that people can see that I am like actually an ex-Muslim. I'm not just making it up, because like obviously people are skeptical. They don't know whether you're telling the truth. And so yeah, that's basically my journey. Oh, and I didn't talk about that. I left Islam basically. So about 2015, so almost 4 years ago, I was in the mosque. Actually, sorry, step back 1 year before that. So 5 years ago, I was in the middle of Ramadan. Somehow, oh yeah, there was a discussion going on Facebook. Now this is interesting. On Facebook, it started. Somebody mentioned that he almost left Islam because, he was looking into Islam to convert to Islam. It was a white guy, and he said he found out Islam was man-made, so he didn't convert to it. And I was a Muslim, and this was a friend of a friend. So I messaged him directly, and I'm like, hold on, what do you mean Islam is man-made? He said, yeah, the stories in the Quran, the Jewish folk tales. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's easy. I can solve that problem. Let's talk about that. I said, look, the Jewish folk tales, they actually come from God too. So it's easy, right? He's like, no. He's like, check this website. And he sent me the website. And he's like, look carefully. The Jewish folk tales are in the Talmud, not the Torah. The Torah is considered one of the books in the Quran, mentioned in the Quran, right? The Quran says we sent the Torah to Moses, right?
Yes.
And we sent the Psalms to David, and we sent the Injil to Jesus. So I'm like, well, there's no Talmud in the Quran. That's interesting. And then I looked up the Talmud, and it's basically the sayings of the rabbis. Okay, so it's like the stories of the rabbis. So they used to like make stories to teach people, and somehow those ended up in the Quran. So now I was like, whoa, this is like kind of troubling, like, because rabbis don't speak to God.
Yes.
They're just like imams. Like it's like an imam writing down a story and then it ends up in a holy book. It's like, what? Like this is weird, right? So the next thing that happened was I actually looked into more issues, including Dhul Qarnayn. The Dhul Qarnayn issue ended up being like a bigger problem for me than like the stories, like the other stories. And then I actually left Islam for 1 day, believe it or not. I left Islam for 1 day. I stopped. I didn't tell anybody except my wife. I stopped practicing. I stopped fasting. And I said, I need a timeout. I need to think about this. Like, is this really true? And then I started emailing my wife said, talk to some of your friends. And I emailed my friends and stuff. And what ended up happening was I said, okay, you know what? Islam is good for me, and I think it's true. It's just this one issue. Then I'm just gonna like, somebody sent me a video, one of my friends, that said Gog and Magog, which is Yajuj and Majuj. The problem I had was like we looked all over the earth and we can't find them, and there's supposed to be this giant gate that keeps them away from destroying humanity. And we've looked all over the earth and there's no giant gate. Like we have Google Maps, we have Google Earth, we've done a scan of the entire planet, and there's no gate. And it's not. I mean, some Muslims will say it's silly to actually look for the gate, but if you think about it, even I think Omar ibn al-Khattab, or one of the caliphs, Omar ibn Abdul Aziz, he actually sent a delegation to try to find the gate. So one of the caliphs of Islam was also looking for the gate. So this is like actually a thing they believed was there, but nobody could find any such gate, right? So I was troubled by that. But then somebody sent me this video by this Egyptian guy, and he said maybe in the earth, maybe they're like hiding somewhere, maybe like he had a lot of maybes. And so at the end of it, I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just accept that maybe I can't solve this, but Islam is true. So I went back to Islam, and I prayed, I fasted. My family was still being Muslim, eating only halal meat. All the stuff that you need to do. And then what happened was 1 year later, I was in the masjid, in the mosque in Ramadan, and the Imam said something that triggered me. He said, "Oh, these scientists, they say the Quran is unscientific because it says Allah holds up the sky, and they say and he kept quoting these things that sounded like dumb, and he's like, the scientist is ridiculous. Allah knows the truth," or something like that. And so I went home, and I was troubled by this because it brought back all my doubts. And this was in 2015 July now. And then at this time I said, okay, I can't live like this anymore, having doubts in my mind, like whether it's true or not. And it was just overwhelming for me. Like basically the cognitive dissonance became too much for me. And I said, okay, I'm gonna find out. And I started reading everything I could find about Islam. I read every single anti-Islamic website I could find. I looked up the responses to this anti-Islamic website, and I called my friends. I started posting on Facebook everything I was reading, and people got scared. They're like, "What's going on? Are you doing a social experiment? Is this a trick? What's going on?" I said, "No, I'm having I don't know if this is true anymore, right?" And people like, "Astaghfirullah, brother, you shouldn't be saying this online. You're causing fitna in the community. You need to go talk to an imam." I said, "Okay, who do I talk to? Like, give me some contacts." So one of my friends in the US who I studied with at university, he's now a teacher of Islamic studies in the university in the US. He called me on the phone, and I started to ask him. I said, like, doesn't this trouble you that, and he knows all this stuff, by the way. He's a professor, right? I said, doesn't it trouble you that the Quran speaks about the universe in a way that matches a 7th century man's understanding? Like it talks about the sky being held up, right? There's like sky is emptiness of space. It talks about like not being any cracks in the firmament, but the firmament is, again, it's a word used to describe the sky, but it's not solid. But they used to think it was solid. And I said, don't all these things trouble you? And he said, he said no, because this and that. And I said, well, isn't it true that it was when Ptolemy was translated into Arabic, that's when we find that the Quran, not the Quran, but the tafsir starts to reflect modern science. And he agreed with me, but he couldn't really, I don't know, he couldn't convince me that my points were not valid. He basically was kind of like shrugging his hands and saying, it's just the style of the Quran or something. I don't even know it. I don't even remember what he told me, but it was like, it was fluff. It wasn't anything convincing. So I said, thank you for your time. But unfortunately, like, I don't see how this solves my problems. Like, I'm still have the same doubts. I also went to talk to another friend who almost left Islam. And at the end of the 5-hour conversation, he told me, I just want to believe just in case. So it's like, don't, he's like, I said, what if
wager?
Yes, Pascal's wager, right? At the time, I didn't know that was called Pascal's wager. And so I'm like, okay. And I said, what if I have other questions? Because this was very early on. And he's like, oh, no, I don't want to, I don't want to think about this anymore. I just want to be Muslim now. I'm like, okay, it's up to you. But yeah, basically, I couldn't find a way to make Islam make sense anymore. So that was the end of it. That was the end of Islam for me. And that's how my journey started as an ex-Muslim.
Okay, there are two fascinating aspects in this. So let's break this into two parts. In my view, your life can be first. See, you have made two cognitive flips in my view. One was a flip from an Ismaili to a Salafi Muslim, or I think Ismaili Islamists or Ismailis in general. Because we come across a lot of Ismailis in India, especially in Mumbai, where I'm from. Mumbai has a lot of Ismailis, by the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I find them usually to be the most moderate ones in Muslims. They just they don't care. Most of them don't even follow most of the things. So
yeah, it's
from that, now you have made a cognitive flip to probably the most hardcore version of Islam. And obviously, anybody who's going to go and check out your videos, there is one video where you state, you're an active propagator of Islam, not like an imam, but you were someone who has what I call skin in the game. You're using Taleb's version of skin in the game. So you were not a prophet or an imam. If you were that, you would have soul in the game. So someone having skin in the game. And you were very serious about it. As you mentioned, you've created a couple of websites which were very in-depth. These are scholarly websites. Like you can go and actually understand Islam if you are a believer, if you go into those websites. Now, what made you flip the first time from Ismailism to Sunniism or Salafism, and then what made you flip the second time from a Salafi version to atheism? So because I'm interested in the cognitive dissonance that was created in both the cases, especially in the first case. What made you be like, this ain't good enough? If I'm going the whole hog. So
So the first time this happened was so I didn't convert to Salafism straight up. I was just general, what you'd call like a general Sunni Muslim. I only became Salafi many years later because as a new Muslim, you don't really know these things. You just like, yeah, whatever, 5 times a day prayer. But as you learn more, then you start to see differences in the community versus Sufi versus Salafi. The reason I left Ismailism is because Ismailism is a kind of reformed Islam, but it's also like it's not. It doesn't match what we find in the Quran. So what you find in the Quran is that uh, Allah says in the Quran, "Do not pray, do not invoke anyone other than Allah. Don't pray to anybody except Allah." But at the same time, that's what Ismailis are doing non-stop. Like the actually saying Ya Ali, Ya Mawla. Whereas in the Quran says do not invoke any other gods except Allah. So now I used to ask my father about this. I said, how does this make sense that you are actually saying, oh Ali, oh Mawla, Ya Mawla, Aga Khan, forgive me and help me get better. I said, where is the precedent for this in Islamic history? I said, and then, Shias, so Ismailis consider themselves Shia. He said to me, well, at Ghadir Ukum, which is an incident that happened, Allah told Muhammad to tell Ali that Allah told Muhammad not to hide the fact that Ali was going to be the next leader, right? Now, it's kind of silly. In my opinion, it's a very weak argument. But I said, okay, let's say that's the case. Where in the life of Muhammad do we see people praying to Muhammad? And you can't find that. Like, that goes against, like, the very thesis of Islam, in my opinion. Now, I used to say Ismailis were not Muslim when I was a Muslim, but I don't say that anymore because obviously there's there's many forms of Islam. But I don't see how it matches the Quran, the very primary, like, fundamental book of Islam. So what I think now is that, like, what I understand now, what I mean to say is that Ismailis, like, they take the Quran very allegorically. They don't take it literally. And so when the Quran says, like, I had one Ismaili friend tell me, when the Quran says that don't drink alcohol, it means do not get drunk on this life. Like, kind of like Rumi Sufi style interpretations, right? So in my opinion, Ismailism is much better for the world than Sunni or especially Salafism, but it doesn't match the text. It's like a new religion. That's what it is, right? So that's why when I started to look into Islam, I found it made more sense to be a Sunni Muslim than an Ismaili, because Ismailism, it's illogical. It doesn't match the Quran, right? So that's why I left Ismailism.
All right. So one follow up to that. Now here's an interesting take. So while you were a Sunni Muslim, so would your attitude towards your own family be that they're fake Muslims? If you don't mind me asking that question.
Yeah. So like I said, my mom's side of the family was Sunni, but my dad's side of the family was Ismaili. And I used to cry and I used to think that my dad's going to hell. I used to believe my dad is going to go to hell because Ismailis are doing the very thing that. So hold on, let me explain one more thing.
Okay.
This is the biggest thing that made me leave Ismailism. The Quran says, Allah says in the Quran, Muhammad says, whoever commits shirk, associating partners with Allah, will go to hell forever, and Allah will never forgive you. But you do anything else, He'll forgive you. Okay, so this one thing is, I asked my dad, and he said, yeah, that's what Ismailis do. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, that's what Sunnis say that Ismailis are doing. I'm like, holy shit, I don't want to go to hell. I don't want anything to do with this because hell is a very scary idea. And so I used to think that Ismailis are going to go to hell. And of course, now I know better that there's no such thing as hell. But at the time, I used to think, yeah, they're basically fake Muslims in the sense that they're going to go to hell because they're committing shirk, right? So, yeah, that's what I used to believe.
Okay, now let's talk about the cognitive flip from Sunnism to Salafism. See, what I've noticed, I've been talking to a few ex-Muslims. See, your story is slightly different from the average ex-Muslim in that sense that you were pretty hardcore. And then from being hardcore, you came up to, let's say, atheism. Now, in most people, there's a gradual journey. You keep losing your faith, you keep losing your faith, you keep losing your faith. And you use mental gymnastics. Okay, you know what? That doesn't make sense. Okay, I'm going to leave that part aside. Okay, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to leave that part aside. And then by what I call cafeteria religion. So it's like you go in a cafe. So today, I like a burger, so my religion is a burger. Tomorrow I go somewhere else, my religion is somewhere else. And it's pretty much cafeteria religiosity is the norm with every religion basically.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that is a bad thing necessarily, considering ISIS existing in this world. I actually support cafeteria religiosity. I support anything other than hardcore religiosity. So
Yeah.
that's my level.
Yeah.
But considering that your journey is different, your journey is like from here to here. Now, how could that happen? That's what fascinates me. And I was telling you about that when we were having a DM conversation on Twitter too. I still can't wrap my head around that because there's no gradualism here. You're just like, okay, bullshit, I'm out.
so yeah, that's the thing with me. I guess that's a personality thing that, like, it was like I watched the podcast you did with Armin Nabavi, and it actually made sense to me what he was saying, that how is it that he didn't understand, and I had the same problem as a Muslim. I didn't understand how can people believe this religion is from God and yet they don't practice it. It didn't make sense to me. So the only logical thing to do is to take it all the way, because it's hell and heaven, right? It's a very serious matter. And so just to be like logical about it, like you have to be serious about it. I never understood, and I had this like very strange experience, let me tell you. A lot of my family members, I told you my family is very liberal, except for my brother who is very religious. He's also Salafi. But the rest of my family, and he converted after me because of me. But anyways, that's a different story. So other than him, the rest of my family is very liberal. When I told some of my cousins, I said I left Islam, and these guys, they go to nightclubs or whatever. They're very like, you wouldn't even know they're Muslim, or some of them, right? And when I told them I left Islam, I thought they'd be like, "Yay, good job," right? They were like, "What? Why? Why did you leave Islam?" I was like, "What's going on here? I don't understand." And one of my cousins, he actually was like disappointed, and he's like, "I used to look up to you. Like I was a bad Muslim, and you were the good Muslim, and I used to look up to you, and I used to think like I want to be like you." And I was like, "Huh? What? Like, nothing stopping you. You can be a good Muslim. Just do it. Like, whatever, right?" But like, he was disappointed I left Islam, yet he doesn't follow Islam. I was like, I don't get this. Human beings are so confusing. We have such strange, like, how do you have these ideas in your head at the same time? Like, I don't understand, right? So for me, I just did what was the most logical thing to do, which was look into Islam, read the Quran. Okay, but here's the catch. When I first why didn't I go from Ismaili to atheist? Like, why did I go from Ismaili to Sunnism? That's a good question. The reason why is there's two big reasons. One is I wasn't very critical back then. I was 18. Like, I wasn't critical. I had already this Abrahamic concept in my mind. This idea from Ismailism that there's one God, that he sends prophets. I was just taught that as a kid, and I used to even listen to the Quran sometimes. My dad used to put on at night, even though he was completely like agnostic, I would say, my dad. But he was also, in some ways, he was a strong believer in God, but he was also very agnostic about what God meant. Like, I think you and him would have been very good friends. Like, I actually would have, even though he died now, he passed away. He like my views are very similar to what he believed, except he used to believe in God and I don't believe in God. So that's the difference. But so when I was able to find out that at that time I wasn't very critical, so I just believed in Sunni Islam. I'm like, okay, it sounds good. And two is I was not scientifically literate. That is a big problem. Now, of course, you do find people that are scientifically literate and also believe in crazy things. But for me, this was a problem because as I grew older and older, as I grew into my 30s, because I'm in IT, I was exposed to a lot of science, right? And because IT people tend to have a lot of, at least in Canada, a lot of computer, software developers and stuff, they tend to be atheist. They tend to be very scientifically literate. They tend to be very educated. And so being surrounded by this, like eventually it caught up with me. And that's when I started to see a problem between what the world is and what the Quran says the world is. And I'm like, that's when I had a problem, because before I had no idea what the world was. Quran could say anything. I'd be like, yeah, sure. Quran says this, okay. but when I became more educated about science, to me, this was a problem. Not like the slavery and other things, but the science was a problem.
Okay, and that's very interesting that you mentioned about science. Well, in my personal experience in my life, when I come across religious people, I think most people don't really read their religious scriptures, whether it's Hindus or Muslims, or it's just, even when they read the scripture, they don't really understand the scripture. Especially the case with the Quran is unique because it's in Arabic and most Muslims don't speak Arabic. So they really don't know their religion. So it's always, what your grandma told you, Muhammad believes in this, Muhammad really takes care of these people. So all the dirty versions are never talked about. In the case of Hinduism, too, Sanskrit being a language and most scriptures are in Sanskrit, the real scriptures. But unlike that, there was a lot of translation in Hindi and local languages too in India. So in India being a country with so many languages, Hinduism spread not actually in Sanskrit. In the last 1500 years, Hinduism actually did have a lot of religious discourse in their regional languages. So there was Hindi, Tamil, different languages. So in the case of Hindus, they actually kind of have a better idea about their faith in that sense. What I had with Muslims was they were more, in spite of that, I find Muslims to be far more rigid in some sense. Maybe it's got to do with the structure of Abrahamism in general, where Abrahamism is far more rigid than, say, non-Abrahamic faiths, whether it's pagans or Hindus in general. Hindus tend to be more flexible. And basically, I don't understand Hinduism myself, where it's fucking anything goes. I mean, I don't get it. I don't need to decide for once. Anything goes. How can anything go? So it's like that. But that's for some other day. But that I want to connect this thing with Islamic Reform. And let's start now with Islamic Reform. Because obviously I am someone who firmly believes it does not matter what religion one person belongs to. Religion is nothing but a set of ideas. Those ideas are set in a book. But religion is defined by the level of religiosity of its people in that particular society at that particular time and space. So maybe Islam in Saudi Arabia, for example, would be very different, say, from Islam in Pakistan or Islam in India. And I have personally experienced it when I used to live in Canada. When I went to Canada, when I was at York University in Canada, and I was studying there, for the first time in my life, I came across far more Pakistanis than I have ever come across in my life. That was the first time I realized what a Muslim is. I had not come across those kinds of Muslims in India. I'm not saying those kinds of Muslims don't exist in India. I had not come across them.
In what sense?
And they were
how were they different?
Hardcore. They were far more hardcore. They disliked Hinduism with a passion. I was an atheist then. By the time I was in Canada, I was 19, 20, and I had pretty much become an atheist then.
19, 20?
Yeah. By the age of 19 or 20. Not 19.
Okay.
I was in Canada in 2000. 2000, 2001. So I was studying. So I used to find that very interesting. Now, but when we look at Islamic reform, I take Ismailism actually as a classic case. Let's take Ismailism for that example. Now, if we would, so let us split. I call atheism right currently is at a very interesting cusp. So, in my view, there are broadly two groups of atheism today. One is the neo-atheistic Dawkinian variety, which considers religion to be a mind virus that needs to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Completely destroyed. You take a hammer and you just smash it completely. There is the other group, which now, interestingly, even Brett Weinstein has joined that group. There was a famous debate between Brett Weinstein and Dawkins recently.
Dawkins. Yeah.
So that was very interesting. But I have always been on that camp, probably since the last 10 years, 12 years. I've always been who has looked at religion as an evolutionary exaptation. I genuinely believe religion is basically an evolutionary byproduct. It has used certain needs that we had at a level of a species. And it's basically piggybacked on that, and it's there, and it's the biggest game in town. It's been here for thousands of years. In the case of Islam and Christianity, it's slightly newer, but religion as a conceptual product or entity has been far older than Islam, Christianity, or Judaism for that matter.
Yeah.
Hinduism is a far older religion in that sense.
Yeah.
So now I might say that I don't know if it's a virus or not. So here I have always believed that, if Christianity could be reformed, if Judaism could be reformed, if Hinduism has been reformed, why can't Islam be reformed? I mean, it just makes no sense to me. The whole argument that Muslims are reforming Islam, well, what is Islam? Islam is what Muslims are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is Islam a separate entity? That book is Islam and it ends there. Well, then even Christianity can't be reformed by that argument, because the Old Testament or the New Testament, the verses are not changing, right?
Yeah.
Nothing changes in the text. So if we go by that logic, then no religion can be reformed. Probably Hinduism still can be reformed, because Hindus will say we can reject religious verses. That's allowed in Hinduism, other than the Vedas and the Upanishads. But everything else can be rejected, actually sanctioned in Hinduism. But still, I just don't buy that argument. If you can do mental gymnastics, or you can work around, the New Testament too, because there are some verses which are very problematic even in the New Testament. Like, the Matthew one where Jesus says, I come with the sword, or whatever. So if somebody says, I don't want to take, sometimes what I find in the atheistic pantheon is that they are as literalist as the religious people. I don't know why.
It's like,
how does it help?
It's like some people call them Salafi atheists.
I don't call them Salafi atheists, because I don't think so. They want anybody dead or anything. And I believe their heart is in the right place. The Salafis, their heart is not in the right place. But still, I find the attitude.
So I would actually disagree with that. So hold on, let's step back 1 second. So I don't know about India. Okay, obviously there's a very different dynamic in India, but in Canada, Muslims do read the Quran in its language, in Arabic, but also they do tend to read it in English as well. Now, it depends if you're talking about the common Muslim, like I told you, that doesn't really practice, versus a religious Muslim. I was in the religious, like, Muslim community, right? So like I had my kids in Islamic school. My wife was wearing hijab as well. All of her friends are hijabis. She knows tons of converts to Islam, like white converts to Islam. I know tons of white converts to Islam. Like, we were in that community of, like, the religious community, right? All my friends had, like, big beards or whatever, right? Not all of them, but, like, either they had big beard or they were religious in other ways. They would wake up in the middle of the night to pray. They would fast extra prayers on top of Ramadan. Now, so these people, like this religious community, they would read Quran in Arabic in Ramadan, but like there was also an emphasis to read it in its original language, especially among Salafis. They tend to read the Hadith, even the Hadith, not just the Quran, but even the Hadith in English. So, for example, I used to have a copy. I actually bought a copy of Sahih Bukhari. I read it cover to cover, like the summarized one, not the gigantic, like, 12 volumes, which is mainly just like repetition. Like this version with this chain, and this chain slightly different. This one has a slightly different word. So it's a lot of repetition. The summarized one gets rid of all the repetition, right? It was translated by obviously a Saudi, right? Mohsin Khan. So that part of the community, they, whether the Salafi or just general religious Muslims, they did tend to read the Quran in English. Like I said, Salafis would read it in English as well. And so because reading it in Arabic by itself, and then a lot of them that didn't actually read it, they would get it like filtered to them to the Friday khutbahs. So every Friday they would listen to khutbahs. At the conferences they go to, there'd be a lot of things quoted in English, so it would get to them. But there definitely was a connection with the scriptures, including the bad parts. Now the question is, how did they handle the bad parts? Well, what we can talk about that as part of the reform discussion. Now the thing about Salafis is, I actually have a video on this. Salafis are not jihadists. This is something that is like kind of confusing to people. There's a big difference between a Salafi and a jihadi, and the difference is traditional Salafism is completely pro-government and completely anti, like pro-establishment, and it's completely anti-jihadist in the sense that people that, okay, but here's the thing. Majority of jihadis tend to be Salafis, okay? They tend to come from Salafism and then they become jihadis. And I think the reason for that is because Salafism is very, like, it's a very, let's call it rudimentary way of looking at the religion. It doesn't take a lot of thinking. It's just kind of like very black and white, straightforward, by the book. But there is, even in Salafism, there's scholars, the Salafi scholars. So the great Bin Baz, Albani, like Bin Baz, like all of these, Ibn Uthaymeen, these are Saudi scholars, right? And all of these scholars, because they were Saudi scholars, they would actually say, we are against terrorism. So if you go to like a major website, fatwa-online.com, and this is a major Salafi site, you will see right on the top, we are against terrorism completely. And they're not lying. That's what they actually believe. And if you read the fatwa from the scholars, the Salafi scholars say that whoever like basically kills another Muslim, whoever kills another Muslim will go to hell forever, right? That's what the Quran says. So now, how does someone go from Salafism to become a jihadi? Because jihadis are usually Salafi, but the Salafis that are killing people. So what's the difference? The vast majority of Salafis, including all of the Salafis I know in Canada, they are all against terrorism. They're all against killing anybody, but because they believe that jihad has to be like called for by the Amir, the religious ruler. So for example, if there was an Islamic State and then he said we're going to do jihad, then everybody is obligated to join the jihad. It's basically everybody. If it's a defensive jihad, everybody has to join. But if it's offensive, then as long as there's enough people that are joining, that the jihad can go on, then they can join it. But basically, there has to be like a position, someone in a position of power that makes that announcement. Now, but here's the thing: who gets to decide who that person is? Because now the jihadis, the jihadi Salafis, they'll say, I'm the Amir. I get to decide, right? I point myself the Amir. I'm the leader of you guys. You're going to go for jihad. So Al-Qaeda and all of these terrorist groups, they're self-appointed jihadists, basically, right? They self-appoint themselves as the Amir, and then they go to do the jihad or whatever. I think every Muslim, including Salafis or Sufis, they think they're doing the right thing. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was making the world a better place, even though like my brand of Islam that I was following was actually bad for the world. I just didn't think it through. I just didn't realize that, because this is how I used to think. I used to think that, look at all the evil things happening in the world. Look at all these, like, all these countries that are getting bombed, and look at all these innocent people that get killed, and look at all of the violence and the injustice. And to me, I thought Islam will solve all of these problems. It was a very simplistic thinking, but I thought that. And so that's why I was just trying to make the world a better place. And it's only when I realized that Islam is actually false that I was able to abandon it and now call for something else, which is secularism. I'm pro-democracy. I'm pro-LGBT rights. I'm pro-women's rights. I'm pro-choice, like in terms of like how, freedom of conscience, freedom of belief. That's why I was able to change. And to get into what you were saying about reform, Islamic reform, I 100% agree with you that, and to understand, I think, why people say that Islam can't be reformed, I think one is they haven't looked at history. They haven't looked at history, and they haven't seen how other religions like Christianity have been reformed,
Exactly.
right? And the second thing is they think it can't be reformed because they somehow like they feel like Islam is very like it's true. There are certain things in the Quran that make it difficult to reform. Like, for example, the Quran says, accept Islam completely, like ati Allah wa ati Rasul, obey Allah and obey His Messenger. And it says in the Quran that you should say sami'na wa ata'na, we hear and we obey. So it's all about like submission. I mean, that's what Islam means, right? Islam means to submit. So how can you submit and also like modify it, right? But here's the trick. Here's the interesting trick. Now, I think progressive Muslims, the ones who call themselves progressive Muslims, who are like pro LGBT rights, I think that's just the same as like Ismailism, in the sense that it doesn't jive with the book, right? And it's very difficult to connect Islam and like pro LGBT, in my opinion, right? And I've read the arguments of progressive Muslims where they try to say that the story of Lot was about rape and not about homosexuality, but it doesn't match the story. It doesn't fit. That argument doesn't fit. So let's put progressive Muslims on one side, because I feel they'll always be the minority. What I'm more interested in and more excited about is traditional Muslim scholars were reforming Islam without calling it reform. A good example, there's many examples. One example is Yasir Qadhi. Yasir Qadhi is someone that went from a Shia hater, and he's Salafi too. I don't know if he still calls himself Salafi. He's basically Salafi. He used to be anti-Shia. He used to be like very hardline, right? He used to have all these conspiracy theories about, used to be anti-Israel and whatever, anti-Semitic. But now he actually came out publicly saying that we should work with American intelligence agencies and support them in, like against terrorism. So, for example, if there's someone in the community that is going to do something, go tell the cops, basically, right? And I remember like very, very hardline Salafis would be like, oh, he's sold out to America. He's no longer on the side of the Muslim, because, like I said, Salafism is very antagonistic. It's us versus them. It's we are the people of belief and these are the people of disbelief, and we should hate them and blah blah blah. It's a very evil kind of thinking, but that's what's taught. Whereas Sufism and the Sufi Muslims are more like, we should love everybody and this and that. But how is the reform happening? So Yasir Qadhi is kind of one example, even though he's still on the far right in terms of like how hardline he is. Still, he's done a lot, right? I went to one of his classes and he actually said it's okay to celebrate birthdays. I used to think it was haram. It's okay to celebrate your anniversary with your wife. It's okay. Like he basically said, you don't have to wear your pants above your ankles. Like a lot of things that I thought as a strict Salafi were haram, he said it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's all okay. And he's still like a hardcore Salafi. That's one example. Second example is Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, who is another American scholar. He studied in Mauritania for like 10 plus years. He is widely respected. He's a white, obviously, convert to Islam, but he is considered a scholar. His sheikh, who is Abdullah bin Bayah, and him have both said, one, apostasy law should not be implemented anymore. Blasphemy law should not be implemented anymore. Islam is compatible with democracy. We should not be stoning even adulterers. We should not be killing apostates. So they're saying that. Now, how do they do this? A lot of people will ask, well, aren't they like throwing out Islam then? Like, how are they able to say, don't do this, don't do this? Like the Muslims, right? How are they Muslim then? And the trick is that even the Quran itself, the rules of how to interpret the Quran, those are man-made. Like if the Quran says, for example, chop off the hand, okay, how do we know what's the rules for that? Is it always chop off the hand? Even if they steal a penny, a chocolate bar, you chop off that? Come on, even like no, even non-Muslim, unless you're like an extreme, like you want to like straw man Islam, nobody would say that's Islam. Islam doesn't say chop off the hand for a chocolate bar. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's clearly not part of. So what is the actual like rule? Like in what cases? So we have to look at the hadith, and then from the hadith, and the scholars will come up with some sort of ruling. Now the scholars themselves understand that not all of the things that Muhammad did at the beginning of his career till the end of his career were the same. So there's a lot of room for interpretation. There's a lot of room to say this hadith is weak or this hadith is fabricated. There's a lot of room to, even without saying the hadith is fabricated, we can say it doesn't apply anymore because the actual general, the greater goals of Sharia are to save life, to save lineage, to protect wealth. So these scholars like Hamza, Yusuf, they'll say, well, we're still going by the rules, the laws, the goals of Sharia. But the implementation, that we can do ijtihad, we can come up with a new ruling that makes sense. Now, in my opinion, this Islam is going to become the dominant Islam, and Salafism is going to be gone, or like become a minority, because Salafism doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit in today's world. It's too hateful. It's just, it's not, I don't think it's violent per se, unless you, like I said, you ignore all the Salafi scholars and you become your own scholar, and then you just become like a terrorist. But in general, like what I call Salafism means the Salafi scholars, it's not violent per se. Unless, of course, you mean against like homosexuals, killing homosexuals and stuff like that. They would still say you have to do these things in an Islamic state, but we don't have an Islamic state. And if you say, well, what about ISIS? They'll say, no, ISIS is not a proper Islamic state. Why? Why not? What's wrong with ISIS? Like, if you ask a Salafi, I don't know what they will say, because even some Salafi scholars have admitted that they are Salafis, but the method is incorrect, but the beliefs are correct. Why? I don't know.
It's basically, man, what I say, this is a classic case of cognitive dissonance. What happens is the moral arch around you is going on changing.
Yeah.
Everybody around you is happy. They're like living a nice life. They like being nice to each other. And then you don't want to be the asshole in the discussion. It's like, I want to kill you. I mean, it's obvious. And what happens is eventually the cognitive dissonance is there, and then they're like, you know what, but I don't like to call myself an ex-Muslim. I don't want to leave Islam. I don't want to leave my community. So I'm just going to fucking work around it and do some mental gymnastics. My problem is, while I personally find it bullshit myself, and I say this to all my Hindu friends also who do the mental gymnastics around it, but my point is, I don't care. And beyond a point, I know the whole society is never going to be atheistic. The data is not with us. The data is not with us. Atheists reproduce less than theistic people. And there is basically, I mean, just face the facts, man. I'm an atheist myself. Let's just face the freaking facts. What we will have is cafeteria religiosity. And as long, and you know what? I think at times it is not being charitable to Muslims in general in that sense. I'll tell you why. Did Christianity evolve in 5 years? No.
No.
Christianity took 500 years to reform itself. So why is everybody expecting Islam to evolve in a snap of a finger? It's not going to evolve. How Islam is going to be evolving is, you know, guys like you, Vidu, Haris, Ali Rizvi, Armin, you know, different shades. Now, all of you have different views. Like, you know, probably Vidu and you are more on Islam can be reformed. Armin is smash it, smash it, smash it. It's all bullshit. You know how Armin is. I mean, we are all in this together. We speak with each other. We all know each other now. But the point is, there are different shades. And I always say this, you know what? Human beings are complex personalities. It's not like you meet an atheist and they are 100% rational. They're not like robots. Even atheists have cognitive dissonances. They forget to realize that the most of this left-wing bullshit that is happening currently in America under the pretext of social justice, most of them are atheists. Gender is a social construct, is atheists too. They are, so it's not like they're not irrational in one issue. It's just that different people are irrational in different things. My whole question every time is, give them some time, let them do their mental gymnastics. While I'm very clear, I live in India. I live in a very hostile territory. It's like India and Israel are hostile places because we're surrounded by countries that are hostile to us. And I'm a hawk when it comes to these things. Don't get me wrong. If they, like somebody was saying, oh, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh should unite. Fuck no. I like living. I'm sorry. I am not for that. And that doesn't make me a bigot. I am very pro-Muslim in these things, but I don't want demographic changes in India because it comes with some problems. And I have data to show that. I mean, what happened in Kashmir, what has happened to Hindus in Pakistan, what is happening to Hindus in Bangladesh. So it's not complicated. And, sometimes people find it weird that, so you have a worry about demography, but you still keep talking about Islamic reform. I was like, I don't know why you guys find it confusing. I am trying to give a rope to Muslims in general by saying that it's okay, man. At least you're trying to reform your faith. Just make it into some weird case where, you go to a club and dance and you pretend to pray and whatever. Now, that's my whole angle. I hope you get it.
Yeah, so just to ask one, so do you think that the Pakistan and Bangladesh should never have been split from India?
No, I don't think so. It was needed at that point of time. I think if Pakistan and Bangladesh partition would not have happened, I think we would not have had so many problems that we have.
I tend to agree with you. I'm completely ignorant on this topic, but I feel like it wasn't a good decision. I don't know. Maybe this is an unpopular view. But
I'll give you a very simple example. Today, Pakistan has wiped out all its Hindus. Other than what I'm saying is very harsh, but that's a fact. They've just kept some Hindus as museum pieces over there.
Yeah. How did they wipe? What do you mean wipe them out? Like kill them?
They've been converted or killed. I mean, every day you see stories about Hindu girls being abducted, being forcefully married. It's pathetic. I mean, I have been following some Hindu reformers in Pakistan. You won't believe it. I'm not going to take their name because they're that shit scared. I messaged them privately. I was like, would you like to come and speak with me online? He's like, do you like me to stay alive? You want me to stay alive, right? If I come on your podcast, especially an Indian, and that to an Indian who's not a left-wing Indian per se, you are someone who opposes the left wing in India in some issues. Although I'm a liberal socially, I'm like liberal on everything. But it's not good enough because I criticize Islam. It's just the way it is. You can't criticize Islam in India. You are branded a fascist.
Really?
So it's very clear, man. The left wing in India is in bed with the Islamists. It's very clear. They don't criticize Islam. They just pander to the mullahs, and that's how it is. Right? Triple talaq was valid in India till a few months ago.
Oh, no.
It's a democracy. 70 years, triple talaq was still allowed.
Wow. So crazy.
Yeah, so it's like that. So in my view, it would have if India and Pakistan would have been one entity. Biggest thing was India's economic values and India's economic decisions would have been Pakistan's economic decisions and Bangladesh's economic decisions. That would have led to better education in those countries, better facilities in those countries, less population in those countries, and the Hindus would not have been butchered the way they were. But am I unhappy that the partition happened? I don't care, man. I mean, the things were the way they were at that time. Jinnah wanted something for himself, and at that time it made more sense, I guess, because Hindus and Muslims were not getting along, and a lot of people don't like to accept this fact that Hindus and Muslims have not gotten along for a long time. I'm not saying all of them, but you read the scriptures. Hinduism and Islam are totally incompatible.
Would you say there's been like an actual genocide in Pakistan of Hindus? Or just like a cultural assimilation over time that's wiped out?
When you say genocide, I mean, I don't want to use the word genocide because they basically were converted out of threats. So you can't be a Hindu in Pakistan and really survive. And I'm waiting for someone to say, look.
It's also Christians have a hard time in Pakistan, don't they?
Very hard. Anybody who's come on,
and Ahmadis, too.
Anyone who's not Islamic enough is gonna have. See, Pakistan is the biggest proof. I think the one thing that I always take pride at when it comes to India and Pakistan and the comparison is that look, we stayed a democracy other than the blip in 1975 where Indira Gandhi tried to impose an emergency in India. Other than that, we have stayed a democracy. We have had successful elections, safe transfer of power every election. We believe in some fundamental things. We have a, judiciary. We take time, but we are chaos, but we get things done. I mean, even a terrorist from Pakistan called Ajmal Kasab got a fair trial in India. The trial went on for 7 years, but he got a trial, and then he was given the death penalty. But the point is, he got a trial. So we are a democracy, and look at our economies, man. Pakistan is in a mess. Like I always say this, India is a country that has an army. Pakistan is an army that has a country. It's
That's
like
pretty funny, yeah. Is there any actual documented evidence of these like conversions and these kidnappings and these threatening people to, because Islamically, I mean, I'm under no guise to say that like Pakistanis are not necessarily implementing Islam, but like this wouldn't be allowed under Islam, because you're not allowed to force someone to convert to Islam, because it wouldn't be an actual, you wouldn't be doing it of your own free will. So like the Quran even says that if someone like forces you to pretend you don't believe in Allah, you're allowed to do that. You could lie and say, yeah, I don't believe in Allah, because they're going to kill you. So, and the opposite as well. Like if you under the threat of a gun, you told someone to convert, I mean, they wouldn't go home and pray 5 times a day, right? They wouldn't be fasting in Ramadan. They'd be like, I don't believe in this. I'm just pretending, right?
Yeah, but Abdullah, you have to understand, our societies are very tribal and very feudal. So if you're living in Pakistan, it's a very agrarian society. So you live in small villages where everybody is interconnected. People, I mean, come on, man, you're a desi. You know how desis are. Yeah. And your aunt wants to know everything that's happening in your life. Your neighbor wants to know everything that you see. You're based in Canada, so it was too cold to go to the neighbor's house. Unfortunately, for Indians and Pakistanis, that option does not exist. It's too temperate a climate. Everybody's poking into everyone's life, man. So you really can't pretend to be. I mean, just take the case of Spartacus, right? The atheist that all of us have worked towards. Kudos to Haris Sultan. Haris led it.
Yeah.
We tried to help in whatever way we can, financially or whatever. I was trying to give Haris some advice behind the scenes about how to get him out or whatever. The point is, the man was hiding. Why was he hiding? I mean, the man was hiding and saying, there is enough documentation of what has happened to Hindus. And believe me, not just right-wing outlets in India. These are left-wing outlets, left-wing, activists in Pakistan who have been talking about the plight of Hindus. Then there are some. Look, I always say this: Pakistanis and Indians and Bangladeshis are pretty much one stock. Nobody can deny that reality of life.
Yeah.
We're pretty much one stock. The only thing that differentiates us and them, by and large, is Indians are what I call dharmic and democratic. Pakistanis are Islamic and aggressive. Pakistani state, not Pakistani people. So in that sense, as long as Islam is the lingua franca of Pakistan, and you have to understand, Pakistan was created for only one reason. Muhammad Ali Jinnah believed that Hindus and Muslims are two separate nations. Congress did not believe that, right? Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Patel, they did not believe Hindus and Muslims were two separate nations. They believed that. So they got their country. It's pretty simple. What the funny part is? Pakistan was created by Muslims living in a state in India. There's a state in India called Uttar Pradesh. So the whole concept of Pakistan was from these Urdu-speaking Muslims who basically superimposed their idea on Punjabi, Balochi, Sindhi-speaking Muslims over there. And imagine the plight. Living in Pakistan, you're a Punjabi. You don't speak Punjabi. You speak Urdu. It's so stupid.
I don't even speak Urdu or Punjabi. I only speak English.
Yeah, but come on, man. You live in Canada. My wife's a Canadian. She hardly speaks Hindi too, right? I mean, she's
no. I don't hardly speak Hindi. I don't speak any Hindi whatsoever. I was never taught any other language by my parents.
Wow.
I only speak English. That's it. Like, I don't even understand Urdu or Hindi or Gujarati. I only know Kemcho and Barabar, and that's it. Right? That's the only 2 words I know. If someone's speaking it, I can pick up a few words here and there. I'm in no way literate.
He knows the swear words in our languages.
Yeah, I know the swear words from my parents. Yeah, my dad. So it sounds like there's clearly like discrimination in Pakistan. There's active discrimination towards all the minorities, and that's kind of the problem with not having proper secularism, right? Like, secularism is supposed to protect all of the minorities and against, but that's kind of a problem with democracy too, where you have majority would oppress the minority. They can, right? Because the majority's interests are taken care of, which is why it's a challenge, because the minority, obviously they won't have the voting power of the majority, but we still need to make sure that we take care of their needs. So clearly there's that. But obviously I'm not knowledgeable enough on this topic, but I haven't heard the news of like this sort of like cultural, it sounds like a cultural genocide that's happening towards Hindus. I have heard about this in China with the Uyghurs, the sort of Turkish subpopulation in China, but I haven't heard about this in Pakistan towards Hindus per se. I always thought, like, yes, there's discrimination, but they still lived in peace together. But then again, I'll like I said, I'm not familiar with this topic to really talk about it enough. So.
You know what? What I'm going to say, again, it irritates Pakistanis and Muslims in India. But to be very honest, I think most Muslims in India and Pakistan, which are normal Muslims, they are basically what I call Hindufied Muslims. They, a lot of cultural habits of Muslims in India and Pakistan are actually Hindu cultural habits. Yeah. These are not Islamic habits, right? Yeah. I'll give you a very interesting example. Nazar lag jana. They say, you got jinxed.
Yeah.
Getting jinxed is not an Islamic thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Hindu thing. Nazar lag jana. I mean, come on. Where in the Quran? I've read the Quran. I've read 4 freaking translations of the Quran. I've read the Sahih Muslim too. I did not read the whole Bukhari, but I read the Sahih Muslim. So, I'm a pretty decently read guy when it comes to Islam. In fact, the Quran was the first book that I read.
Yeah, and I think you'd get the same thing with Canadianized Muslims, right? Like you'd have Muslims in Canada. Obviously, anywhere you go, you'd have the majority would have an impact on the minority. Like I know one non-Muslim guy from Indonesia. He has a Muslim name, but he doesn't like it, so he goes by Ricky. He goes by Ricky because he doesn't like his Ahmed name because he's not Muslim. And every time he uses a Muslim name, people assume he's Muslim. So he stopped using it, just made up a new name. He's like, yeah, I'm Ricky. I'm like, you're Ricky? Yeah. He's like, yeah, but let me show you my ID. He's from Indonesia, right? So I'm like, okay, it's fine. I'm not judging you.
I guess it's classical cases of enculturation. But you know why? I'm going to connect this to a unique problem, which is you guys are ex-Muslims, and I'm going to take Vidu is obviously in the live chat. So, hey, Vidu, how are you doing, brother? So I'm going to use this. You guys are creating content, whether it's you, whether it's Waleed, whether it's Haris, whether it's Ali Rizvi. It's all of you guys are creating content. You guys criticize Islam. It's scholarly. Sometimes, Vidu uses humor. You I think are more scholarly. Haris also tries. Abdullah, Gondal, Haris, Ali, all of you are using. But what happens is a lot of times there is genuine bigotry towards Muslims too. It exists in India too. I'm not talking about the degrees, but there is bigotry towards Muslims in India, or there is bigotry towards Muslims in America, in Canada. I'm not saying it's widespread, but it exists. So how do we differentiate genuine, scholarly or fair criticism of Islam from Muslim bigotry? Because what happens is the moment I start to talk about Islam in a way, my Hindu friends, let alone anybody else, my own Hindu friends will call me a bigot. Now, I'm not a bigot. I got Muslims in my own freaking family.
Do they call you bigot or Islamophobe? Do they use that word over there, or is that only a Western thing?
That is a Western thing. It is not because in India. In India, we have this word. You are a communal extremist. They call it, everyone is a communal. The moment you question Islam or Christianity, you become communal. Hindus are not allowed to. I'll give you a very funny example. So there is a handle called feminism in India, right?
Huh?
So, 3 days ago, we had that World Hijab Day, right? That monstrosity World Hijab Day. So feminists in India basically made this tweet saying, oh, it's an amazing thing. They are not strangers. So we should celebrate World Hijab Day. The same feminism in India. You know how Indians have that ghungat thing, right? Ghungat. There is a ghungat. So, you use a sari, and Indian women would the Hindu women, the ones who wear a sari. So they would put a ghungat on, and they would criticize that as a Hindu religious practice. Fact number 1. Most ancient Hindu women, you can look at the temple architecture, were very scantily dressed, by the way.
Yeah.
This whole covering up the face is actually classically correlated to the Islamic invasion of India. Let us not give Islam the blame. Let us assume, which I don't agree with, but I'm still willing to concede it, that, okay, Hindus use that parda. Okay, fine. The Gungat was criticized by the same handle, Feminism in India, saying, see how bad it is. It's,
Yeah.
Hindu patriarchy. The same handle tweets, let us celebrate the hijab. Now, that's the case everywhere in the world. It's basically, it's happening in the West too. Everybody wants to wear a hijab. I don't know why anybody wants to dress in a tent. I honestly
Yeah.
don't know. I mean,
Well,
why
it's to protect themselves from Allah's anger again, and it's basically you get blessings for every moment that you're wearing the hijab, right? That's basically what it is.
Yeah, but now let us talk about this bigotry towards Muslims. How,
That's a very good question. Yeah.
yeah, because I want to talk about that because it concerns me. Look, at the end of the day, whether you're a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jew, whatever, man, atheist, we're all human beings. We don't want to be bigoted towards each other. I'm not saying there are no bigoted Muslims. Obviously, there's bigotry in Muslims, and I'm even willing to concede that the percentages might be higher because of the way Islam is structured, and they just take the damn religion too seriously as of now.
Yeah.
But the point is, we cannot negate the bigotry towards Muslims. So how do you think, you as an ex-Muslim, now you guys are a community now, obviously.
Yeah.
And people like me who still consider themselves part of a Hindu pantheon and a Hindu society, how can we help in having this dialogue where we don't convert critique of Islam to bigotry towards the Muslim in general?
Okay, it's a great question. Before I answer that, I just want to ask one more question on that last topic. Do you think that in India Hindus mistreat Muslims as well, or do you think it's only in Pakistan like Hindus being mistreated? But do you find this like, or do you think India is better than Pakistan in that sense, that they don't mistreat Muslims, like not eating with them and drinking with them or considering them like lowest outcasts or whatever?
Look, if we are looking at, let's look at the data first, right? 1947, there were two nations that were created, Pakistan and India. Now, from 1971, I'm willing to concede the argument that West Pakistan and East Pakistan, and most of the Hindus were in East Pakistan and Bangladesh. But even after that, the percentage of Muslims in the population of India has been increasing steadily from 1947 onwards. I think it was around 8 to 9% in 1947. And today it's around 14% of the population officially. If you ask someone else, they unofficially, they say Muslims are 17 to 18% of India. Officially, it's 14%. I'm just going to go by the last 2011 census in India. Are there bigoted Hindus who hate Muslims because they are Muslims? Absolutely yes. And I can go on producing articles after articles about bigotry towards Muslims in India. N number of them. But is the overall Indian society bigoted towards Muslims? I don't believe that, because there is a fundamental difference between Hinduism and Islam, Abdullah. I am a critique of Hinduism. I criticize Hinduism and Hindu practices. I am a disbeliever.
Yeah.
I have been very open about it. I mean, I do monologues where I talk about problems with it.
But is this a religious thing, or is this like a tribal thing? Because in China, I mean, we're talking about atheists oppressing Muslims because they feel threatened by this religious like separation. Not necessarily. So even if it's not for Hinduism, just in general, like, couldn't it still be an issue because Pakistanis are seen as different? Not Pakistanis, like Indian Muslims are seen as like a threat to the greater culture of India.
I think Islam is seen as a threat. Muslims are not seen as a threat because they're just look. I'll tell you, to connect it to the feminism in India tweet, when they said the hijab is not strange, my only answer to those dumbasses was, there are millions of Muslims in India. You just have to walk on any street in India and you'll see a burqa-clad woman. It's not strange for us anymore. It's never been strange for us. There are just too many Muslims in India for it to be strange. Although the number of burqas in India has increased in the last 30 years, I would not remember any single Muslim woman wearing a burqa. They would just wear a sari or a Punjabi suit, whatever was the dress of the nation. Today they are covered. But is there bigotry towards Muslims in India? Yes. Is it widespread? No. I don't agree. And there is no data that proves that. I know there was this weird fudged, there is this factcheck.india which tried to show that, there is a bigotry, but they were exposed. They were, selectively picking up news reports. In India, you have to understand, India is different worlds in itself. So if you pick up English newspapers in India, you will only see attacks against Muslims.
What?
Only. Yeah. You'll hardly see attacks against Hindus. It's just that. You
Okay.
go to the regional media, you
Yeah.
pick up Hindi newspapers, which
Yeah.
are probably in circulation 20 times more than the English news, because
Yeah.
Indians still read their regional languages, right?
Yeah.
You go to
Yeah.
Tamil newspapers, you go to
Yeah.
Bengali newspapers, there you'll see violence committed by Muslims towards the others, whether it's
Okay.
Christian, whether it's, a lot of people don't realize this word love jihad became very famous in India. It was
Uh-huh.
not coined by the Hindus, it was coined by the Christians in Kerala. They
Okay.
coined that word, the love jihad concept. Although
Okay.
I have my own problems with that concept, it
Yeah.
sounds very stupid to me at times. But the point is, I would be a hypocrite to say that there are not bigoted Hindus towards Muslims in India. And that's what concerns me. I'm
Hmm.
not saying it's widespread. I think it's
Okay.
India, by and large, Indians are very peaceful people. India is a peaceful society. Yes, we have riots. I get it. We are a 1.3 billion country, and we have a very weak police force. In that sense, there are not enough cops to maintain
Yeah.
law and order in India. Still, we're not even a middle income country. So let's get real. We are not the West. These
Yeah.
are rich countries that have enough cops and law and order is maintained. In India,
Yeah.
law and order is an issue. But I still believe, by and large, both sides are not as bigoted towards each other in that sense. But there is bigotry. So how do we deal with that bigotry is my question to you. Because look, Abdullah, the material you generate, whether you like it or not, is going to be used by the alt-right in America, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Is going to be used by the crazy cuckoo, Hindus in India, whether you like
Yeah.
it or not. And they're going to use this to spread hatred against Muslims. So how do you, as an ex-Muslim, as someone who criticizes Islam, how
Yeah.
do you counter that? I
That's a
think it's a genuine question.
it's a great question, and you know, this is a actually this is an amazing, like, this is such an important question. The reason it's so important is because the uh, one of the biggest reasons why more ex-Muslims don't speak out against Islam is because of this. And even, a good friend of mine and someone I look up to a lot, like a hero of mine, Hassan Radwan, like, he's also gone from criticizing Islam to stopped criticizing Islam to criticize Islam, because he felt as well like this fear that he is actually supporting people against Muslims, right? You know what I'm saying? And so I have another very good friend who lives close to me, who is basically continues to call himself a Muslim only for this reason. My friend Reason of Faith has a blog called Why More People Are Not Ex-Muslim. And this is one of the top reasons, right? One of the top reasons is because the fear that their criticisms of Islam are going to be used against Muslims, and it's going to cause more hatred and, increase the power of the far right, whatever. Excuse me. So what's the response to this? How am I able to continue doing this in good conscience? The answer is that after some time of doing this, I was able to understand like how to differentiate criticism of Islam from bigotry against Muslim. And that's why that word Islamophobia, it's such a genius term, because what it does is it conflates the two. So when someone attacks you for Islamophobia, you're basically instantly you're basically being called a bigot, but you're not necessarily being a bigot. You might just, it was kind of scary at one point, because I thought that there was a motion. It wasn't even a law, but it was blown out of proportion in Canada. There was a motion being passed to condemn Islamophobia, and the far right was taking it as if this was like creeping Sharia, and it wasn't. It was because three Muslims. Actually, I don't know if it's three. How many? A bunch of Muslims were killed in a mosque in Quebec, in Canada. Some guy came inside the mosque and killed them. So they made this motion from a Muslim member of parliament to condemn Islamophobia. Basically, what they were doing was condemning like hatred towards Muslims. That's what they meant. Now, the problem is that term Islamophobia, it conflates like legitimate criticism of Islam with like hating Muslims, and anti-Semitism is clear. It's not anti-Judaism. It's anti-Semitism, meaning it's being against a certain tribe of people, a certain race,
Certain race.
nationality. It's pretty clear what it means, right?
Yeah.
So that's different. Now, what I constantly do, and this is very clear with like Reason on Faith, for example. He is an ex-Ahmadiyya Muslim, and he says, like, if you see his like Twitter handle, it's right up front there. Hold on a second. I just want to read it. Ex-Muslim, originally from the Ahmadi Muslim community, I critique Islamic theology, right? Including Ahmadiyyat. I detest anti-Muslim bigotry. So he like clearly is saying, like, you know, this is his thing. Now I don't go that far and like put that right on my handle, but like this is kind of like where he's coming from and where I come from as well. That, you know, we can do both. We can criticize Islam, and we can also be fair, you know, freedom of conscience, freedom of belief. Like Almin Nabavi said on your channel, I will fight for your right to practice Islam, to wear your hijab, to even do dawah, right? Like I will fight for your right to do that, but you also have to let us do our thing too, right? So the way I balance my criticism of Islam is I just make it clear whenever possible that this does not mean that Muslims should be banned or should go to jail or should be like tortured or persecuted like what China is doing. No, none of that. We will fight you with ideas. We will fight your bad ideas with good ideas. And yes, I guess I could say I hate Islam in a sense, depending on what you mean by Islam, right? I detest this worldview that is basically bad for the world. That's my right.
I think that's fair. You can hate
Right?
Islam, but what I'm trying to say is, because you know what has happened. I've seen a trend. You've been banned by Facebook recently.
Yeah,
Right?
happened twice. Yeah.
Yeah, Haris keeps getting banned all the time. It's like, you know, every 3-4 days I'll go on Haris's timeline. Oh, my
Yeah.
Facebook account got shut. I was like, nah, again?
Yeah.
And
The
what
thing
happens is they're projecting you as Muslim haters too. So that's why I asked you this question. Let's dispel this image for
Yeah.
once.
So Facebook is the worst. Twitter is not as bad, but it happens on Twitter as well. So Apostate Prophet was recently banned permanently from Twitter. So like can't come back, and so he's trying to get his account back. His Sultan tends to get banned a lot on Facebook, and the reason I think that the reason I was banned was I was targeted, and my posts that had nothing to do with Islam even were targeted. So there was a tweet I had. It was so silly. A post I had that said, "After sex selfies are trending again." It was a funny picture of a guy with his chest showing. There was no nudity in it. It was a guy with a shirt off, right, and a girl like laying down on him. You can Google it. It's hilarious. It's a funny photo. I was banned for that. It had nothing to do with Islam. So I was targeted by someone I think I know who it is. He's one of these progressive. He's kind of a progressive Muslim. I don't know. He's a weirdo Muslim. Anyways, I don't know what to call him. He's in his own category. But he got mad. He's so-called progressive, but he got mad at me for attacking Islam. Like, what kind of progressive are you? You're like a fake progressive Muslim. Anyways, I'm like 99% sure that's what it is. Who it is, because he went through all of my posts and he found the ones which were like sort of like controversial, and he flagged them. Of course, there's far more nudity than that on Facebook. The problem with his Sultan, and I have a disagreement with him, is I feel like his criticism of Islam is far more blunt, and we disagree on this. Like his the way he approaches, the way he posts, I don't think it's necessarily ban worthy, but it's far more aggressive than what I'm posting. Let's just put it like that. So I've been trying to not piss off people for the most part. Sometimes I do piss off people. I do piss off Muslims. I do make them mad, but my approach is a little bit different. So people that are a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more antagonistic, they will keep getting banned because the platform does not support them, right? You know what I mean? It's not that I don't think that is siding with the Islamists. I don't believe that Twitter or Facebook is basically pro-Islamist unless it's because of some of the funding that they have from like Saudis. For example, Twitter is partially owned by Saudi guy. But I think more than that, it's all about money. At the end of the day, these corporations, they want to make as much money as possible, and whatever threatens their ability to make money, like, you know, you're a YouTuber, like our videos get demonetized all the time, right?
Oh,
like you can't.
I've not even applied for monetization. It's a waste of time.
It's not a waste of time in the sense that you can, as long as you don't, like, there's certain keywords, like we've talked about too many of them now. like terrorism and extremism. We can't talk about that stuff. But if you're having like a general chat about stuff, sometimes even if you're not like offensive, your video will get flagged for not being monetized. But the reason for that is, again, they want to keep the platform advertiser friendly. And let's say, for example, somebody's attacking Islam, 1,000 Muslims will complain. And what they'll do, they'll complain to Nike. Let's say there's a Nike ad on my video. They'll complain to Nike, and Nike will go and complain to YouTube, and YouTube will get mad because now the advertisers don't want to use the platform. They're not going to make money. Their entire existence is at risk because of some anti-Islamic content. So why the hell are they going to support me? There's lots of like cat videos. There's lots of prank videos. There's lots of other content that's not risky for them. So why would they want to take that risk, right? So a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to make a new platform. Good luck. Good luck making a new platform. Like, good luck dealing with spammers. Good luck dealing with DOS attacks. Good luck dealing with child pornography. Good luck. Like there's no, you can't beat Twitter and Facebook. You just can't. So either you play by the rules or you build your own, not social network, but you build your own like platform in the sense of your own private mailing list. That's like the best basically you can do. You can have a mailing list. You can keep in touch with your fans or followers, and that's the best you can do, because every other platform you can get delisted. And that's why Sam Harris, he has direct donations via PayPal. Even PayPal can block him if they want, but I don't even know if he uses PayPal, if he uses direct credit card transactions. But he has basically everything going through his website, which is the best you can do.
Yeah,
at that point,
if I was going to say Sam Harris as an example to you myself.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, now let us connect. Okay, now we've covered the bigotry towards Muslims. Now let us come to the other side. Look, I have told you my story. I basically have no story. So I was 18. I tell my parents, I don't buy these claims in Hinduism. They're like, okay, shut up, have your breakfast, and nothing happened. I was not, abandoned. There was nothing basically happened to me, but I have met too many Muslims. And, especially in the last 1 year, since I've started talking to ex-Muslims on my YouTube channel, there have been a lot of Muslims or ex-Muslims or atheistic Muslims in India who have been messaging me privately on Facebook. They message me privately. They don't reveal their identity. I've spoken to a few too on a Facebook call. And they say, man, you guys are lucky you don't go through what we go through. And that's a fact, because I'm kind of an activist too in India. So I'm politically active. I meet a lot of people. Let's just say that. Now, here's a case where this is a minority within a minority in a unique way. If you are living in a non-Muslim country, Muslims are anyways a minority. And within that, there are ex-Muslims who are a minority within that minority. You leave Islam, your family abandons you. I have had too many cases of that happening. Now, and there is genuine bigotry towards ex-Muslims within the Muslim community. There is solid bigotry that if you say, I reject Islam, they hate you. They hate your existence. How do we deal with that problem now?
Sorry, the problem of people hating ex-Muslims' existence, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, ex-Muslims face death threats all the time.
Yeah. So, okay, again, I'm going to say something a bit unpopular that ex-Muslims might get mad at me for saying. But I think the whole death threats thing is overblown. Like,
fair enough.
I don't mean all over the world. Okay, Sheriff Gabber in Egypt, I fear for his life. Like that guy, he's going to be killed if he's not, like, if he doesn't escape that country. I do think he will be killed. I believe there's credible death threats. Even if not credible, the fear of the death threats is enough for him to fear, like, his life is ruined. Like, honestly, his life is ruined. He can't live there. Like, the damn government should just let him leave. But the problem is anyways, I don't want to blame him for anything, but I just hope he escapes, because he deserves asylum like nobody else. Like, this guy, I fear for his life. But let's use me for an example. I've got a bunch of death threats online, but the reality is that I'm not in Pakistan. Okay, I'm not talking about Pakistan. Pakistan, yes. I'm talking about, and even in Pakistan, I know some people are able to come out openly as atheists, but just in certain cities like Lahore, in the universities, places of education that are like big cities, it's different than like small rural towns. I don't want to talk about Pakistan because I understand there's credible death threats to them in Pakistan.
Even in India, by the way.
But in Canada, like I don't think that, like, you shouldn't be going on and on about I'm ex-Muslim, my life is at risk. Like shut up. Like, your life is not at risk for being an ex-Muslim. Like, honestly speaking, you're just overblowing this whole thing. Like, you're just, because I left Islam. I'm big in the community. Everybody knows me. People know me as a convert as well. I have a sort of celebrity status in the Muslim community because I converted to Sunni Islam from Ismailism. Yes, I didn't convert from Christianity, but whatever. People see that I changed my life and I'm religious. And even like I told you, my cousins, some of them look up to me as, mashallah, this brother is such a good brother. I want to be like him. So when I left Islam, it was a big shock in the community. Everybody was like, oh my God, this guy left Islam. What's going on here? But what happened to me? Nobody I knew threatened me to my face. Nobody. Like, now compare this to Abdullah Gondal. His own like uncles and aunts like threatened to kill him, and he doesn't even know. Maybe they're serious, they'll do this. Okay, so there is credible death threats, but in my case, my Muslim community, the Canadianized Muslims, let's call them that, nobody threatened me. They were sad for me. They invited me to this atheist conference that Yasir Qadhi was speaking about atheism. They said free of charge, come, I didn't want to go because I was like, at this point, I was confident in my views, and I didn't feel comfortable being the like odd atheist in like this big conference of all Muslims. I didn't feel comfortable. But the point is, the death threats are cheap. Online death threats are cheap. Anybody can give you death threats. It doesn't mean anything unless it's a credible death threat. What was credible to me, and this I will tell you, is a threat, is a real risk. It comes from speaking against Islam, not just leaving Islam. You can leave Islam, nobody cares. Honestly, unless your family is like very like backwards, I think there's more risk to a ex-Muslim girl or even a Muslim girl having sex before marriage and being like maybe killed for that, like as honor killing, than like, I just don't believe in Islam. Like, because I don't believe in Islam, she might get kicked out. She might lose her like university funding. Her parents might not want to talk to her, and all of that happens in Canada. But it's far less likely she'll be killed for that. Okay, that's what I think. But all of those are really, very real. Like, that's painful. That's horrible. Like, to lose your family. That's why a lot of ex-Muslims have psychological issues, because it's like your whole family is everything. Like, family, your community, and I'm lucky that my family is very liberal, and they accepted me leaving Islam. They didn't care. They were like, okay, whatever, it's your choice, right? And I'm so grateful for that, because like I said, I've heard of people that suffered so much. The moms are crying and crying and crying, and please come back to Islam, please come back to Islam, and they don't know what to do. And the dad sometimes is angry, won't talk to them, or is threatening. I know one guy messaged me in the US that told me that his dad told him he's not going to pay for his university, and he said, what should I do? I said, just lie. I said, just tell him I'm Muslim again. And he did that. I said, don't create a fight for yourself when you're in a situation where you're not self-sufficient. Just be dishonest and just believe in Islam for a little while. Just pray and whatever. Like, it's not going to kill you for a few more years. Just keep the peace. When you're out on your own and you have a job, then you can be honest and you can tell them, Daddy, Dad, Papa, Baba, I don't believe in Islam, and I know this is going to hurt you, but this is my own belief, and I can't change it. This is just what I believe. You can't choose your belief. It's not like I can convert to Islam. Like, how can I be Muslim just like that? Like, the only thing I can do is pretend to be Muslim, or find some like strange, very, very Sufi perennialist belief that every religion is true, and like that's the only way I can become Muslim again. But most people would consider me kafir, because I wouldn't believe that there's only one God, or I wouldn't believe that hell is real. Like, I would be a type of Muslim that like people would consider me a disbeliever and they'd want to kill me. but the reality is that, for like, thankfully we live in a world now where, at least in the West, you can talk about Islam and not be killed. But the worst thing that happened to me is that Muslims who knew where I worked, they called my company and tried to get me fired, to
Wow.
lose my job. I found out after the fact. I actually ended up talking to my boss just some other, it's like way later. And I told him, by the way, I found out that people are trying to get me fired. And he's like, oh, that already happened. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, we had a bunch of people call the company and say, oh, you're preaching against Islam and you're a bad representative of the company. You're ruining the image, and they shouldn't employ you. And they had a meeting about me. The whole company, the managers, the human resources, they had a meeting. What should we do about this guy? And they decided, thankfully, that it's my own, like, what I say outside the job is my own, like, business. I'm not basically, it's my own opinions. It's my own right to believe. Like, let's say, for example, even if I was against like homosexuals, that's my own choice. That shouldn't affect what I'm doing at work, because I'm doing a good job at work and they love my work. They're very happy with me. I recently got a promotion even. So they love me. So they're happy with me. But this thing had nothing to do with my work. So why would it be relevant? But in some cases, you can lose your job for this. Like, my family would have suffered because some people were so offended by what I was saying that they felt that I didn't deserve to have a job. Right? Now, how they found out where I worked, that's a bit of a mystery, because I don't even really publish this, but somehow they found out. So the point is, there's definitely risks and this was after like 2 or 3 years of speaking about Islam publicly. So it took a long time for this to happen. It didn't just happen at the beginning, but eventually people got kind of, certain individuals got fed up. And part of this as well is kind of the cost of popularity, the cost of fame, you can call it. As you get more and more popular, it's just a numbers game. You're going to run into psychopaths. The more famous you get, the more psychopaths will stick on you like flies, right? Because as you're going, so you're being exposed to more people. There's going to be a couple of people that are going to stick to you, and they're going to bother you. They're going to stalk you. They're going to harass you. And that's what happened. So I don't necessarily think it's representative of the Muslim community, but I don't tell anybody now anything about my personal life in the Muslim community. I don't talk about it because, like, look what happened to me. Like, I could have lost my job. Like, what the hell, right? That's not right, right? This is online bullying, basically, right? I was a target of, like, actually real life bullying, never mind online bullying, real life bullying. So that's happened sometimes, right? So
Yeah, but then see, this is the problem, right? If you were an ex-Christian, right, or if you are someone like me who criticizes, claims of Hinduism, nothing happens. Nobody calls anyone.
yeah,
Nobody calls
so
the boss and says, fire this guy because he does not believe in my religious claims. So
yeah.
this is a unique problem within the Muslim community. I've never heard of this. I mean, have you ever heard someone calling Christopher Hitchens' editor saying, fire Christopher Hitchens? He wrote the book, The God Is Not Great.
I do think that, like, it's less for the very reasons that you said before, that Christianity has gone to reform and enlightenment. And, like, what I do here that's the most similar to Muslims is Mormons. Ex-Mormons face, like, very similar experiences than ex-Muslims, because they also go through a kind of, like, cult-like system where leaving it is extremely difficult. And so people that leave Mormonism suffer very similarly to ex-Christians. And I have heard of the rare Christian that the family has shunned them or boycotted them or doesn't want to talk to them. Or, the Jewish community is the best, because I know so many Jewish atheists, and they even tell their family, yeah, but you're still Jewish. They accept them. They're like, we don't care if you believe in God, you're still Jewish. Like, which is amazing. I wish that would be like, Muslims would be like that. Like, yeah, you don't believe in God, but you're still Muslim. That's fine.
Pretty much the same case with Hindus, right? You don't believe in God, you're still Hindu. You don't have any choice. You're Hindu. So
That's amazing. Like, that's fine. I love that. I wish the Muslim community would get to that point. I do think that what you're saying does happen to non-Muslim that are against. Like, there's the example of that famous art piece. It's called Piss Christ. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, there are, like, extreme things that people do that get extreme reactions. That guy got death threats. He got lots of death threats and stuff like that too. So, and I have heard of a lot of stories of people that were homosexual, and when they came out to the Christian family members, they were like, I'm not attending your wedding, your gay wedding. I'm not going to support you. I'm not even going to sell you a cake. Like, you've heard of that. That was a kind of famous example. So I do think that that does happen to Christians, but it's less often than Muslims.
So that's my thing. But I mean, if you're looking at data, I'm just talking about it from a see. We can always find anecdotes of it happening in other communities, but if we were to have an honest analysis of what percentages of atheists per community have a problem, I definitely agree with you. It's far, it's disproportionately high in the case of Muslims than in Christians. I don't know much about Mormons. I'm not very experienced with the whole Mormon issue, but I'm willing to buy your argument here, because Mormonism, like anything else, basically is a very new religion. So if you look at it from that point of view, when the religion is very new, the adherents or the followers of that religion tend to be far more, active and passionate.
It's not just being new, because Ismailism is very new too, but Ismailism is very liberal, and like it's more, I think it's more about, like you said, the certain cult-like characteristics of certain religions and systems that allows it to spread further and stops people from leaving it. And Mormonism, I only know about this because Imtiaz Shams, which you may have heard of, he's a very so Imtiaz Shams, who runs a support forum on Reddit, the ex-Muslim forum on Reddit, he said he always hears from ex-Mormons that they've suffered similarly as so I actually have quite a few ex-Mormon followers, because they're like, what you're saying reminds me of what I went through in Mormonism. So that's how I know about it. Yeah,
I've heard a few Jehovah's Witnesses too going through something like this. I remember talking to some when I was visiting America once, and I was just scanning through. So even the Jehovah's Witnesses, they also go through this. But yeah, the Hindus don't have this problem. It's like, I am an atheist. You are still Hindu, so fuck off.
That's great. Yeah.
You have no choice. You're stuck. You have no choice in the case of Hinduism. Anyways, now let us move to the last question, which I wanted to ask you. I wanted to end on a far more positive note, and we can, if you have any questions for me, we can take that too. But this is what I had in my mind. So obviously, you're a member of ex-Muslims of North America, right?
Yeah,
I remember that because I've heard you in chat. So in that you mentioned once that you are a member of ex-Muslims of North America. So obviously, when you leave a religion, with the religion, what are the benefits of a religion? A sense of community, help when you need it, family, etc., etc., etc. Now, ex-Muslims are obviously creating a community, which is, I think, a very sound idea, because everybody needs a community. At the end of the day, we are a social animal, and people need each other. And I don't know why it's a big deal. It's a very natural thing. You tend to get along with people who have similar ideas like yours. I mean, cultural homophily is a very real thing. I don't know why it's such a huge problem. I mean, it's not, if you're a vegetarian, you tend to go out a lot more with vegetarians, because you're not going to go out with non-vegetarians. And I know you must be finding it weird, but in living in India, vegetarianism is quite big in India. So around 30% of Indians are vegetarian, 35% if I'm correct, as per the last government census. 65% of Indians are meat eaters. But I have noticed this, like if I go out with my friends, most of them are vegetarian. There are times we choose to have only vegetarian meals. I mean, that's a sacrifice I am willing to have for my friends once in a while, and they sacrifice at the same time. Now, so if I was to ask Abdullah Sameer this question, what is the road ahead for you individually, as an ex-Muslim, as a content generator, and what do you think is the road ahead for the ex-Muslim movement? I find the whole name ex-Muslim also very weird, but that's for some other day. But I mean, it's like, what? Ex-Muslim, you're Abdullah Sameer. It ends there. That's all it is. I mean, yeah, you're an atheist. I get it.
Ex-Muslim, there's a very good reason for the ex-Muslim label. And actually, this is a great question. Hold on a second. I just want to show you. Okay. So again, my friend Reason on Faith has made this article called "The Need for the Ex-Muslim Label."
Interesting.
And I will send you the link if you can please post it. Yeah, so this is a really great explanation. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'll just summarize what he said. What he said is the ex-Muslim label was invented by basically ex-Muslims of North America. They made it up. And the reason for it is because there was no proper term other than atheist. Like, atheist doesn't signify like your previous connection to Islam, and it doesn't necessarily tell people that you used to be a Muslim. So this kind of general title, because you can't really say ex-Islamist, right? Because not everyone's an Islamist. Ex-Islamist, I don't know. Like, Islamist has a different meaning. So they came up with this title. And at one point in time, I'm like, I'm not even going to use this ex-Muslim title, because I guess I was kind of annoyed with what Muslims kept saying to me, that, oh, you're defining yourself based on something that you're not. But the reality is that I'm defining myself by many things, not just by, like, I'm not limiting myself to not being Muslim. That's not the only thing in my identity. I'm also a husband, a father, a technologist, a software developer, a manager. Like, I'm interested in Bitcoin, and I have all my interests. I like skiing. So I'm not limited to just being ex-Muslim. That's just one thing. And I've heard many people tell me that they appreciate this label because it helps them. Many people didn't even know you could leave Islam. And they're like, oh, wow, there's this thing called ex-Muslim. And then they're like, oh, there's this thing called ex-Muslims of North America. So ex-Muslims of North America is primarily an in-person meeting support group, like you said. And it's very helpful because, like you said, a lot of people, they lose the community and they don't know what to do then. So this is a support network for people in Canada and the US to meet other people, to have that connection, like to get that support. Like, what do I do in this situation? Like, my dad is upset at me for leaving Islam, or maybe he found out. Excuse me. So that's basically why it's there. And sorry, was there another part to your question as well? What's the future for me?
Yeah, what's the future for you individually, and what do you think lies ahead for this whole ex-Muslim movement in general? So what do you see as the road ahead? Do you see eventually the ex-Muslim movement causing so much trouble for mainstream Islam? That's what I'm trying to get to. That they basically, Muslims dilute their own version of Islam till the extent that you no longer have to call yourself an ex-Muslim.
Yeah.
And you come up with something like what the Jews do. Okay, you're an atheist, you're still a Muslim.
Yeah. So that's what Hassan Radwan has been trying to do with his term agnostic Muslim, but it hasn't been successful so far. People can't seem to add the two together. They can't seem to understand you're an agnostic Muslim. But agnostic Jew, like, nobody has a problem with that. But agnostic Muslim, oh my God, how are you an agnostic Muslim? How could you be agnostic and a Muslim? So I understand that there is a sort of contradiction in there, but we need to normalize this contradiction and allow it, like you said, right? However, I do think that so there's a lot of progress that's been made by the ex-Muslim movement. My goal, not necessarily my goal, but the goal, I think, of many ex-Muslims, and like I've talked to Imtiaz about this, is and like Muhammad Syed, the president of ex-Muslims in North America, is to become invited to their conferences and to become a part of the community. Like, right now, you have, like, I don't know if you've seen the video. There's a video of Almin Nawabi, and they're going around ISNA, Islamic Society of North America, conference they had, and he's like interviewing Muslims. Have you heard of ex-Muslims? What do you think about ex-Muslims? And and he was having conversation outside the conference, but they weren't invited to the conversation. There's no ex-Muslim speaker, which is the goal. The goal is to become, like, we become so much trouble for the Muslim community that they accept us as, like, okay, we're gonna allow you. It's gone from the first part was they just pretended we didn't exist. So nobody wants to talk about ex-Muslims. Even you find majority of Muslim speakers, they will not mention my name. They will talk about me without mentioning my name. Yeah, there's this ex-Muslim guy who left Islam and he made conferences and he left Islam for his atheist girlfriend. Like, Dawah Man did that. Okay? Then other people have done that too. It happens all the time. They don't want to mention, even Ali Dawah, he's like, he didn't want to mention Abdullah Sameer, but he was talking about me, like exactly what I said in my video. And it was clear he was talking about it, but he didn't want to mention my name because he doesn't want anyone to look me up. That's the first stage. The second stage now,
the one who said
the second stage is now they mention you by name. So they're like, yeah, there's this ex-Muslim guy called Imtiaz Shams or Vidu Wids or Amin Nab, and he said these things, and this is a response to him. So now they don't care. They're just saying it because they're like, yeah, everybody knows about him. So there's no point in hiding that. That's the second stage. The third stage is like, we Amin Nawabi is going to be talking at the Islamic conference, and he's going to be talking about whatever. He's probably not going to talk about why Islam is false. They wouldn't want that. But he'll talk about, like, I don't know, like the challenges of having an ex-Muslim family member and how you can support your ex-Muslims, you know, whatever. I don't know. Like there'll be some sort of like alliance there where, and of course the hardliners will say, Astaghfirullah, how can you give these guys a platform, and how dare you? And it already happens online. Some people will say, how dare you like give this guy a platform? Like, you know, it's happened many times. People have put pressure on Muslim apologists to block me because they're like, why are you allowing this guy on your Facebook page? Like, how, like, this guy shouldn't be allowed to talk on here. He's misguiding people or whatever. And thankfully that's becoming less and less, and people, Muslim community is kind of tolerating us more, which is, I think, the goal. And for myself personally, I think I'm just gonna continue doing the same thing. There's a couple of topics that I always get asked about to make videos on, and I haven't got the time yet, but I'm hoping to make some more videos, particularly on the topic of, like, one of the topics I always get asked about is like prophecies, like the predictions of Muhammad. So that's another one video I want to make. And there's many topics that is, I want to do like a discussion with an actual scholar of Islam, like Hamza, Yusuf, Yasir Qadi. Those guys are still at stage one. They want to pretend we don't exist. They don't want to talk about us. Like Yasir Qadi, I'm 99% sure like I pissed him off because I made a video about him, and the next day he made like this rant, nasty post about ex-Muslims. Ex-Muslims are so dumb and stupid, and they're like so shallow and blah blah blah. And sorry, I'm not quoting him. That's not what he said, but he was very angry, and it was a very nasty post. He was like basically saying we're deaf, dumb, and blind. He quoted the Quran, but he didn't mention why he was making that post. But the reason why, I'm pretty sure, I'm not being narcissistic, but the timing is all too convenient because I made a video about him. Then somebody told me, oh, a Muslim guy told me, I sent you a video to Yasir Qadi. And then the next thing you know, he's like insulting us, right? And then that was the time where he blocked me on his Facebook. He blocked me. He blocked Jimmy London. He blocked all of the ex-Muslims that were commenting on that post. So he made a post about ex-Muslims, and then he blocked every single one of us. And before that, I was free to comment on his post. But after that point, he was like, that's it. No more. I'm not tolerating you guys anymore. Basically, in the video, what I said was, I think he has doubts about Islam, and he's not going to be open and honest about it. It goes back to what you were saying, that when we talk about reform, you said many of these people are ex-Muslims in the closet. Like, I don't know if it's got to the point in some of these people's minds that they no longer believe in Islam, or they just have like really, really bad cognitive dissonance. It's one of the other. Either they're at the point where they're like, yeah, I understand, like kind of like what I did, where they say, I understand there's some kind of problems in Islam, but I'm just gonna tolerate them because I don't see any better religion. But my answer is, why do you need a religion in the first place? Why does it have to be a better religion? Just don't believe in anything. We have humanity is doing fine without, like, now we can kind of come up with our own like morality that makes sense, right? And so that's what secular humanism is. But they don't, I think many of these scholars, they just have very heavy cognitive dissonance. And I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to accuse them of being like closeted ex-Muslims or something. I'm just going to say, Hamza, Yusuf, Yasir Qadi, you guys probably haven't found your way out of Islam yet. And I hope you do one day. But, Islam is false, basically. But I think they're just like probably in deep cognitive dissonance. That's what I think.
Yeah, it could be cognitive dissonance, and I don't think so. The cognitive dissonance might even end in this lifetime for them. But as long as they are more and more comforting. See, for the positive that I take out of the whole ex-Muslim phenomenon is that eventually there will be a point, let's say 10 years, 20 years, 50 years down the line, where there will be just too many vocal skeptics, agnostic, atheistic, or even cafeteria Muslims who will be like, you know what, I don't like the verse, the Surah Nisa or whatever, where, you can slightly beat the wife with a light stick.
Slightly beat the wife.
Whatever, man. Even the gradations of beating, or you can use a toothbrush to touch her 3 times, whatever, it's not allowed. So they might reject that. I hope so. We'll have different stages. And I think what you guys are contributing in that sense, in my view, the biggest contribution of the entire ex-Muslim movement, whether it's Ali Rizvi, whether it's you, whether it's Sarah Heather, and many others we do, and different. And you guys are so different. What a lot of people don't realize is now, I've spoken to you, I've spoken to Haris, spoken to Vidu, spoken to Armin, and you guys are distinctly different. Like, you guys have different views on a lot of topics. Like Haris, I know Haris may not be as hardcore as Armin, but Haris is still more on the Armin side of religion being a mind virus. And I've read his book. It's a brilliant book, by the way. I really enjoyed reading Haris's book. Vidu is obviously hilarious. You are there, you're the more balanced, sober, calm,
Thank you.
yeah, just basically kill you softly kind of kind of a version. And it's nice. And we'll see more and more people coming out like that. And what I hope that will eventually come out of this would be, you'll normalize being, an apostate. When apostasy got normalized after the Enlightenment in Christianity, if you ask me. It got normalized. There were apostates before too. They were killed. The difference, what happened was, apostasy got normalized in the 19th century, in the 20th century, in the 21st century. Now it's okay. Now it's not like, somebody who's Christian comes up and says, you're an atheist? Why? How could that happen? It doesn't happen. And I'm hoping that would happen 20 to 50 years down the line with the Muslim community. And I think that would be the biggest contribution. In my eyes, this is my assessment of what you guys are doing for the Muslim society at large. And that will benefit everybody else who's a minority living in Muslim countries. Because Hindus basically don't have a say in many areas. In Pakistan, Bangladesh, they just don't. I mean, and that's for maybe some other day. But to me, I think that I, as a human being, that the biggest reason I support you all is, being an atheist myself, and we are all fellow atheists of different degrees and shades, although I am a Hindu. But it's a good thing in this way. So that's what I hope. And I want to, praise something that you mentioned once on Twitter. I don't know if you'll be embarrassed by it, but for everybody who's going to watch this, Abdullah actually had done something all of us should learn from. So he basically has decided to donate 1%, was it, of your income to...
Oh, yeah.
So if you guys don't know what it is, and I really wanted to end by, mentioning this great thing that Abdullah has done. Basically, he is decided to be part of a movement happening across the world, which is called effective altruism. So what Abdullah has done is he's decided that he's going to donate 1% of his paycheck every month to good charities that basically believe in effective results. So there is, I think the website was givewell.org, right, Abdullah? That was the website. Yeah, so givewell.org, and I saw you tweet about it, and then I really liked it. So that's pretty much it. I really enjoyed that part of you, and I was like, good, there are nice human beings in this world, and what you're doing is really kind. So
Thank you. Yeah.
So
I definitely don't want to take credit for that. The idea came from William McCaskill and Peter Singer, those great ethicists. Basically, they came up with this idea that if we all give 1%, and 1%, there's almost like no excuse not to give, because it's so little, right? It's like it can't hurt anybody to give 1%. So I hope more people will definitely do this. It's like, if you don't do it, like, if you don't put aside the money to do it, it's like you won't do it. You know what I mean? Like, you have to force yourself to do it, and just do it, and just not think about it. So if you're making, like, 100,000 Canadian dollars, that would be 1% of that would be $1,000. If you're making 50,000, it would be 500. If you make 20,000, it'd be 200. Whatever you make, you just give 1% of that. And if you can do more, it's great. Some of these ethicists, they give like 50%, like William McCaskill. I think he gives 50% of his wealth, which is insane. I have no idea how he does that, which is amazing. And what they do is they prioritize the most like downtrodden people in the world, and where it makes the most benefit. So Give Well Foundation was founded for that very reason. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you for bringing that up. It's really something like pragmatic and useful we could do for the world today.
Yeah, I really liked it. I've read Peter Singer a long time ago. I'm a fan of Peter Singer, but I was glad to see you doing it, and I was like, here's a man willing to put his money where his mouth is. So it was nice to see. I mean, we all do charity in different ways, and I really enjoyed that part of it. So I guess that's pretty much it, man. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, or we can wrap it up as of now.
No, that's it. I just is it okay if I share my blog and
Sure, 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 sure.
yeah, so if anyone would like to find me, my blog is abdullahsameer.com, and that's where you can find me. Like you said, I started using Twitter a lot more. The funny thing is, We Do Vids suggested I come on your channel, and I was like, I don't even know who this guy is. I didn't realize you were following. We were talking on Twitter all this time, and I didn't connect the two. I'm like, I don't know who that is. Like, I don't want to go on some random channel. Like, forget it. But I'm glad now. I'm willing to spend a little bit of time outside of my comfort zone, I guess. So I'm happy to do this. Thank you for the invitation. I most appreciate it. It was a great conversation. I'm really happy to hear your views as well. And we talked about some really difficult topics, some really interesting questions you had, and I'm happy. It was great. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, man, the pleasure is all mine. And for everybody who's watching this live or who's going to watch this later on, I have left the link to Abdullah's channel, YouTube channel, in the description of the podcast, as well as his Twitter handle. So please subscribe to his channel, watch his videos. He's got some really informative information there, and he has some very interesting chats with other ex-Muslims too. Follow him on Twitter. If you like to troll him, that is the best place to troll him. I would not recommend Facebook, because I don't know till how long he's going to be there on Facebook. Facebook keeps banning Abdullah and Haris Sultan and Ali Rizvi too, so I don't know where you can find them. But
I've taken some small steps to fix that, and I hope it won't happen again. One of the biggest things you can do, just to share with other activists, is don't friend anybody you don't personally know. I talked to someone who works at Facebook, and he said that if you add friends who report your post, you're more likely to get banned than if it's a non-friend. So be careful adding people that you don't know. And I've actually unfriended, like, I don't know, 300 people or something, because I'm like, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are. And I don't add people anymore. I just don't. Whoever I have on my Facebook, that's it. Like, unless I talk to them personally, like you or something, I don't add people, because they're most welcome to follow me, and everything's public for the most part. So that's the step I've taken. And I'm also very, very careful not to post anything that can even be misinterpreted. And there's certain topics I just don't even talk about, like on Facebook, like, was Muhammad a pedophile? Like, if I want to write that word, I go online and I use the symbols, like, instead of, like, there's a website you can convert text to symbols. So, like, it's underlined or upside down or something. And I just put that word in, or, like, instead of saying Muslims, I'll say Muslins with the N. Muslin is a type of cloth, right? So Facebook can't block you for talking about cloth, right? So, you highlight Muslims, and then it's fine. Because for the most part, I think what's happening is Facebook has this automated system in place that, like, if somebody reports a post that has, like, a keyword like Muslim or, like, some Islam or something, like, there's certain words, they have a big list of them. And then you get automatically banned, and then you have to appeal it, right? And on top of that, the people that are working in Philippines, which I believe a lot of them are in Philippines, they might not understand the context or sarcasm. So I can't use sarcasm anymore. And stuff like that. So you just have to be very, very careful. And that's what I'm doing. So far, I've been okay. Twitter, I'm glad, is a little bit more open. I know you can get banned on Twitter too. So that's probably the next thing that's going to happen. That's going to happen because I'm being open there. So, but hopefully not.
Yeah, I hope that does not happen, because the apostate prophet just got suspended permanently from Twitter or something of that sort.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can't control that. But anyways, guys, so I hope you guys enjoyed this chat. And if you like what I'm doing over here, as you know, I only do long form conversations. I don't, do those 10-minute videos, because I have no time in my life other than that. So I try to, extract as much as I can through this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this chat. I really had fun talking to Abdullah. And until the next conversation, it's goodbye. Namaste from my end. Take care, guys.